Oh boy. Redoing LinkedIn.
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, there we go.
Good, 1 sec. 1 sec.
We're ready to go. All right. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody. I am Cynthia Barnes, founder and CEO of the National Association of Women Sales Professionals. And today I am live with Amanda Fuentes from Sika. And today we're going to talk about assertiveness. But before we get right into assertiveness, why it matters, and all those juicy details, Amanda, I want to know a little bit about you and your journey with Sika. And in a male dominated industry, why did you choose Sika? So, kind of a loaded question.
Well, hello, and Cynthia, thank you for having me here today. Um, First, I wanted to say how much I appreciate what you're doing through the National Women's Organization. And I'm honored to be invited today. I did a little research on you yesterday, and I was really impressed with your background and everything you're doing. And there was something that you posted last night that I was right at the time that I was thinking about this topic of assertiveness, that was exactly what I was thinking at that moment. And I said, wow. And then I saw another post of yours that was you dancing while learning to make tiramisu. And I said, this is my soul sister. I would like to, this is great. So a little bit about myself is my background, is in construction. I grew up in a roofing family, worked in the family business while I went to college and studied marketing and international business. I never thought that I would wind up in a construction related field or industry. That certainly wasn't my goal. But I graduated at the time of the economic collapse, 2008. Had to stay working with the family while we let a lot of people go, building the business back up. In 2013, when things got a little bit better, I decided to look, for something in my field, and it wasn't Sika at the time, but it was a distributor of materials for Sika and for other products as well. And I loved it. I thrived in it. I kept moving up, got many opportunities along the way. And then Sika came looking for me about 8 years ago now.
Okay.
And I'm very fortunate. I chose Sika because of the diversity of how big the company is and the different areas of construction that they do, not just what I was doing in roofing, but so many other parts that they do and so many other areas of the building that they touch. And I felt that there was so much opportunity for me to grow and to learn and to become even a greater expert. And here I am today.
I love it. I love it. There's nothing quite as gratifying as loving your work. I mean, we spend 8 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day there. And to hear someone like you talk about how much you love the organization and love your work makes my heart sing. Makes my heart sing. So let's get into some of these questions that registrants have asked about assertiveness. And the reason I wanted to delve into this 3-part series was because one of my colleagues reached out and said, Cynthia, I am a mid-level manager. And every time my colleagues, the other managers who are male, and I go in to meet with our boss, I raise my hand, I speak up, and almost immediately, without fail, I'm overshadowed, I'm ignored, or just plain old talked over. How can I show up more assertively without being labeled the you know what? And I said, well, there are a number of ways to do that. So we had a candid conversation, and I realized after talking with more women, it's an issue. It's an issue. And we can go back to societal norms and things like that, but I'd rather get into your thoughts. So for the first question they asked is it us being assertive the same as being aggressive or overshadowing others? What do you think, Amanda?
So It's funny because a lot of times I think the words are used interchangeably, right? Especially in sales, right? Where they say that's an aggressive salesperson, right? Or I'm considered to be an aggressive salesperson because I'm a go-getter and I, know what I want and go after it. But I think that aggressive comes from aggression, right? And so assertive comes from confidence, right? And the more you build your confidence, the more assertive you're going to be. And so the question becomes, well, how do I build that confidence, right? And so that's mastering, your trade, continuously learning, continuously, if you're in the beginning of your career, assertive could be asking a lot of questions that are thoughtful, and helping you to gain that experience because you might not have that yet. So, and asking thoughtful questions could also help you gain that respect and that seat at the table because they say they get to know you and understand you because you say, how do I show up if I don't have the experience or something to contribute here?
Right.
But always, that's what I say, always be learning. That's what I do. Whether it is in business, I sell products. So I want to know that product inside and out. I want to be as technical as possible. I want to be able to answer every question. And on other topics, I want to learn as well, even if it's in my personal life, because the more you learn, the more, in sales, it's all about relationships.
Yes.
So you never know who you're talking to, what meeting you're in, what topic of conversation comes up. And the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, I think, and the more confident you are in speaking on any topic.
Very well put. Very well put. There was an old saying back in the day, learners are earners.
Right.
And I think that is still true to this day. So we've got another question. Let's get to it. How can I express myself without coming across if I show up assertively without being domineering?
So I think that us women sometimes feel that we have to be more like men in order to show up, in order to be taken seriously or respected by men. And I think the opposite is true, right? And so a lot of times we see them or we mimic their behavior and we come off as domineering, although they may not come off as domineering.
Right.
Right. So I think that we have to, as the previous question with assertiveness versus aggression, assertiveness is being respectful to, right? Is taking into account, how others feel as well, not being aggressive. So I think that if you're assertive, you won't come off as domineering, but you have to know that you're going to have to respect others' opinions, leave the door open for that too. Listen as much as you speak to learn and be yourself. Be yourself because that's why you're there. That's what the diversity is, right? That you bring to the table, that diversity of thought, that diversity of opinion. And being yourself, being real, being authentic, sometimes is the most challenging when you may not be as confident or you may not feel as assertive, but it's really important.
I'd like to unpack that just a little more. So if someone were to come to you and say, Amanda, you're being domineering, but yet you don't feel that you are, what's your initial thought or response to that?
I always want to take in any feedback that's given to me, right? Because, you don't always see how you're coming across, right? So it's important, not to close off or not to be immediately offended by somebody saying that you're being domineering, and maybe ask some more questions if you don't understand. Is why did you come off domineering? And if it doesn't apply, let it fly, because not everybody is. Some people are going to be overly sensitive and offended, and other, but there could be some truth to that and something to take a look at and reflect upon and maybe make some changes.
I love that approach because number one, you said, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. And I think that we could spend a lot of time worrying about how others view us and maybe too much because we can't please all the people all the time. Right. And then I also love the second part of your message where you say that you communicate and ask, How was it that I presented myself that you felt was domineering? Because feedback is a gift, like you said. And sometimes, if we do come across domineering, or at least that person says so, there might be an opportunity for growth. I think it's a delicate balancing act that you mentioned, and I love that. Yes. All right. Our next question comes from Courtney. She wants to know, what's a common myth about your job or industry?
Interesting. A myth. Well, I guess the biggest myth is that women don't know about construction. That
Okay.
women don't have that understanding, right? I think that times have changed. It certainly isn't the majority of women that are interested or know anything or know about construction, but there are a lot of women, and the industry is growing constantly. And this, comes from either people like myself that come from a background in it, or from people that grew to like it some other way. And a lot of times, and I said this in our national sales meeting when I was asked, each of us women in construction usually probably had a male figure that took us under their wing or brought us along, or saw something in us and gave us the opportunity. And so the myth is that women aren't interested in construction. I think that's not true. And we see that even more so, if we're watching shows like on HGTV now, where women are taking apart complete buildings and homes and renovating. And sometimes we're not just interested in the beautification of it, but we can be also interested in the technical aspects of it.
Yes, we are more than just stagers and decorators. Give me a sledgehammer and a jackhammer and I'm good to go. That's fun for me. So and yes, I would agree.
And that's still a big challenge, for us women, because when I first started in my career, I would go on a sales call and I'd realize that sometimes the men were thinking, well, Sika just hired this beautiful face to come sell to me. But it was through that confidence and knowing and learning my trade well that it only took about 5 minutes to overcome that and be taken seriously.
Kudos to you. There's while the compliment is nice, the pretty face compliment, I think I'd rather be known for my brains and respected for my abilities.
Absolutely.
Yes. Next question. How can I overcome my feelings of self-doubt and hesitation? And I think that when this person asked, they were talking about in the initial, like riding a bike when you're trepidatious in the beginning. How can they overcome that?
Right. So again, it goes back to, I think, curiosity, always learning. That's going to help you overcome some of your self-doubt. And it comes in small steps. I don't think that from one day to the next, you're just going to overcome, any self-doubt or hesitation that you have. When I first started at Sika, I was hired for a role that was going to be heavy on presentations to the architectural community. And although I had a great resume and a background, that was, what the executive team was looking at. They said, she doesn't have a lot of presentation skills. And I said, well, I can do this, even though I knew I was petrified of presenting and had maybe only done it a few times in college.
Okay.
But it's the practice, just doing it over and over, because the only way out is through, right? So if you don't do it over and over, you're not going to get better. It's practice like anything else. So now, I go into a room and I'm very comfortable speaking. It took many times. And then there's some days that I'm really on, and then there's other days that I'm not so on. And there's still that nervous factor when it comes to presenting on something new that is out of what I talk about every day, like this today. Right. Or if the executive team called me and said, we need you to present on budgets and profit and loss, and that would be a lot more challenging for me. But it takes, practice, preparation, learning. I think that'll help you, help anyone become more confident and and eliminate that self-doubt.
I would agree. There's something about competence and confidence. The more competent we are, naturally, the more confident we are. Direct correlation, direct correlation. So, what strategies would you say help you become more self assured in professional settings? You mentioned one, the practice, but what else do you do that may not be so common knowledge?
So it's not just practice in presentation, but also, the preparedness of thinking about it as thinking about what you have to say, how to communicate it, but also thinking about the potential pushback that you're going to get,
Okay.
questions that you're going to get, really taking that time to prepare it from every angle. Us women tend to be more analytical, right, than men. So I think that's a great advantage that we have. You really have to think about it from different perspectives, and be prepared to answer those questions. So I think that's a good way to become more assured.
I am so happy that you mentioned that because that brought me back to a time when I worked as an individual contributor in a new industry, and it was trucking. And my boss, Brian, gave me a multifaceted ball. And on each side of this ball was an objection that I would possibly hear in my sales role. And he would toss it to me and it would roll on the table almost like a die. And whatever objection came up, I was supposed to answer it within a split second. And that weekly practice of an hour of going through those objections, it was one of the greatest things I ever did, was anticipating the objection and having an immediate comeback to overcome it. Because a lot of times we get stuck in the let me go back and research that. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
And you can't anticipate everything, right? It's not going to happen all the time. So you can't be afraid to say that you don't know, or that you're going to research it, or you're going to call in another expert or colleague or someone else and get that answer.
Yes. Yes. Because we can't know everything and we can't read minds. So it's impossible to assume that everything that we think our prospect or our buyer thinks. Good point. Good point. Next question for you. In your opinion, what is the most important personality trait someone would need to work in your role at Sika to be successful?
Well, we could say assertiveness would be one, right? To be successful
Okay.
in sales.
Yeah.
Also, the ability to think logically, right? To take scenarios, analyze them, formulate, always be changing, be agile, not afraid to take a look at yourself, as we talked about, and make changes. Be self-aware, I think, is extremely important, right? Because you're dealing with many different people, and you're dealing with people, we mentioned that not everybody's going to understand the way that you come across. Some people are going to be more sensitive to things, right? So I think that learning about people is extremely important.
Yes. This is a people business.
It's a people business.
And too often, sales, I see it becoming more transactional and less relational. And I was talking with a friend. I said, remember back in the day when we used to meet our colleagues for lunch or for coffee, and we used to talk to our buyers face to face, knee to knee, as they used to say. Now we get away from that. And the reps I see now don't have the desire to do that, because a lot of things are remote. And if they can do it over Zoom, they do. I think that those of us who get out in the field and meet with our buyers and develop that human connection in that relationship, I think we will win. We will win.
Right, because with the way things are changing now, it's going to be an even greater challenge for people to get into sales, right? And they're going to have more trouble with being assertive and everything else. So yeah, I think that it is a relational business. I don't think that it's a business that can be taken over by machines,
No.
right? So it's it's there's so many opportunities in it, and that is what I love about it, that relational aspect.
Yes. Yes. It is crucial. It is crucial. So you spoke earlier about empathy. And the next question we have coming in is, how do I balance being empathetic with being assertive without alienating my colleagues?
So they say, right, that us that women are also more empathetic,
Hmm.
right? So these these are the unique qualities when we are, for instance, like myself, leading a team.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, getting to know uh, getting to know people in your team on a also relational, personal level
Hmm.
is going to help you understand them and have a greater understanding of how to deal with them and
Sure.
to work with them. Even people that we don't work directly with, right? Like you said, sales is a relational business. But being assertive is just being direct, right? Being direct and communicating how you feel.
Hmm.
And I think that using the words I feel and I think and I, owning how you feel is
Hmm.
also part of being empathetic because you're not assuming that everybody feels that same way or that
Right.
looks at it that same way. And
Hmm.
then you're open and leaving it open for that dialogue for people to come back and express, how they feel or how they view it differently. So I think that that's how you can balance the empathy and being assertive at the same time.
That is, that reminds me of those I statements when someone is delivering a microaggression or interrupting you or however it is that they choose to approach you. One of the great things you can do is use an I statement, and an I statement is exactly I feel, I believe, I think. First of all, people cannot disagree with how you think, with how you feel, because your feelings are your facts. And the moment you say, I feel confused, I feel disrespected, I feel ignored, nobody wants to ignore you, disrespect you. They're automatically taken off the defensive. Whereas if you were to say, you disrespected me, you said this, people get defensive. So I love that you mentioned I feel. And then because they're not on being defensive, you can then go in to say, I feel that some of the comments that were made were this, and this. And then you can go into why you feel that way. And it's the communication that follows. But if we don't start with the I statement, the communication stops right then and there.
Right.
Right then and
And
there.
if you're trying to get collaboration out of teams, then you want to say this is the approach I believe that we should be taking and
Yes.
outline that. And you're
Yes.
you're immediately telling them, you know, what is it if you disagree with something or you agree with something, please provide
Mhm.
feedback or how do you feel that we can also, move forward.
Right. Because people want to be heard. You may not take their opinion. You may not go down the path that they want you to go down. But I don't know anybody who doesn't want to feel like they've been heard. And I think that's where women are really stellar in our approach, is that we take the time to listen. We take the time to be empathetic and say, you know what, I understand how you feel. Let's talk about that some more.
Well, I think we realize too that we're stronger that way because we could really be leaving something really important on the table or an important perspective on the
Mhm.
table that we didn't even think about.
Yes. Yes. And as leaders, our team members have the best ideas. They really do. Because they're in the day to day, and whatever it is, the lens that they look through, they can evaluate a problem differently than we can. So when we do the simple thing of asking, what do you think? What do you feel? And then let them speak freely like a brain dump without interrupting, they feel heard. They feel as if, you know what, I matter to her. And there may be some good ideas that the people around the table say, you know what, I never thought of that. Let's go down this road with it. It's genius. we have to be the ones to open the floor and create that safe space where our teams want to be heard.
Absolutely. And I mean, even when I'm thinking about things that are at a higher level,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still communicating with my team because for instance, I manage 4 men
Okay.
and myself, so that's 5. Half of which are more seasoned than I am, and half of which are still developing. And so, I get both sides. I get mentorship and experience. I can't pretend that because I'm in this position, I know it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I run ideas by both. Sometimes just call, oh, this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you think? Or this happened, and just getting feedback.
Feedback is a great thing. And I love that how you're reaching up and reaching back simultaneously. Yes. So managing 4 men, 2 of which are more senior than you. What was that like in the beginning? Was there any pushback?
Honestly, I can't. I have experienced some pushback, but very, very rare in
Okay.
my career in Sika. Uh, and the pushback I did receive was very initial
Mm-hmm.
from a very senior male
Okay.
who seemed to judge me right off the bat, like what can this person know type of deal. But I didn't shy away from it. I just kept developing and showing what I could do, and I saw that change just happen.
Mm.
Just organically. Like it was a more of a respect. It was a respect that was earned.
Mm.
And hopefully I am helping pave the way for other women to not have that judgment off the bat.
Yes.
To say, hey, there's some really great women that work in Sika. I think that's happening in Sika right now,
Mm-hmm.
because when I first started, there was very little women in sales.
Okay.
Most of the women were in customer service. Most of the women were in other roles. And I would go to bigger and bigger meetings and I said, really, there's not a lot of women here. And first, my way of thinking is usually very positive. I'm like, well, seems like they're not just trying to fill a quota. The women that I meet here are really rock stars. They really deserve this position. And then, of course, they have all the initiatives in Sika to grow, to grow and bring more women in. But I see that attitude is changing because the women are doing so well that the men's attitudes that I initially saw, where they were hesitant or where they didn't have the respect, they're changing.
Mm. What would you say is the reason why the women are doing so well at Sika?
I think, and this is my experience. I have always been really supported, really supported. I've gotten a seat at the table. I've had great management that has treated me like anyone else. Here you go. I'm here for your guidance. But if you see me all the time, if I'm with you all the time, is because maybe there's an issue. There wasn't a micromanagement. There was a confidence level from the beginning, which made me want to even excel more. And I really, like I said, I've really felt great respect from the male colleagues. And I think I may have deviated from your question.
Actually, you answered it perfectly. I was asking about why do you think you're so successful, and you mentioned the culture, you mentioned the colleagues, and the first thing out of your mouth was, I feel supported. And not a lot of women who work in male dominated industries can say that.
Yeah, my experience is very positive.
Good.
I don't want to diminish anybody else's experience. Of course, I know that it's not the same everywhere, or the same. It can be the same I'm not going to say it's the same across every different manager or every different division. But overall, the women that I've come across, they're happy in their career at Sika. And there's a lot of growth opportunity, and there's a lot of programs for learning and development. And now they've made this a big initiative at Sika. So I think that they're paying a lot of attention to it, and I think that the women are only going to be happier, hopefully.
Yes. I've spoken to several of your colleagues and they're ecstatic, just happy. So I know we are running low on time. I want to get a couple more questions in from the audience. What tools or what underrated tools are indispensable for your job? What do you have to have? Whether it's technology or mentorship or whatever.
You definitely have to have the relational skills we were talking about, right? I mean, you're dealing with people constantly, whether internal or external. You have to be self-starter. You have to have initiative, right? You have to have drive to get things done. Because they're in a corporation this size, so everybody has a task. Everybody has a huge list of priorities and things to do. So you have to be able to manage yourself, which is also the beauty, right? Because you get to manage yourself and have some freedom. Of course, there are many different roles in Sika. It's not all sales. There's marketing, there's customer service, there's so many different departments that make this organization function. In sales, I think that those characteristics are really important.
I think so too. So there's going to be someone who wants to reach out to you. May I share your LinkedIn profile with them?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you go onto LinkedIn and type in Amanda Fuentes, Fuentes, you'll see her picture, long dark hair. Or you can type in that URL and she will connect with you. Amanda, there's going to be someone who says, you know what, I want to learn more about Sika. Can you help me craft my resume, or can you help me give me some pointers on how to interact with your talent acquisition team? Are you willing to do that?
Absolutely. Please contact me through LinkedIn. I can get you, if I don't know the answer, I can get you to the right person. I know that, human resources, that department has people that will help you with all of this. There's a lot of entry level, programs that you can do right out of college. With resumes, if I can give you some pointers, I certainly will. And if not, I know there's a huge amount of resources for you.
Good. And for those who are ready to apply now, they can go to usa.sika.com /en/careers, and they can apply now, correct?
Yes, they can.
Okay. So I promised a gift for everyone who is listening. And thanks to our partners at Sika, the 30-day assertiveness challenge is complimentary thanks to Amanda and her team. So what the 30-day assertiveness challenge is, it's an SMS delivered, so via your text, or for those who are overseas, via WhatsApp. And if you'd like to have complimentary access, email me at hello@nawsp.org. Or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and we will give you that code so that you can experience that. It's a 90-second daily chunks on how to level up your level of assertiveness. So thank you to Amanda and our partners at Sika for that lovely gift. Amanda, is there anything that I should have asked you that I didn't?
That's a good question.
And it doesn't require a response. If you can't think of anything, I just asked you everything. That's fine too.
I think there's always more, hindsight, but I think the interview was great. I thank you for having me. It really was an honor. In our day-to-day with work and busyness, and I mean, we didn't even talk about the other issues of women and all the things we balance, right? And motherhood and all of these things, but
yeah,
just just being invited to do this and taking some time back to contribute in this way to other women, it is really important to me. And it always makes me feel really, really good to do that.
Well, we are grateful on behalf of the leadership team and the members of NAWSP and all of the women in sales out there. Thank you for representing us so well. Thank you for the hard work you do, the challenges you overcome, the energy you bring to your job, and for being an evangelizer for Sika. If I were in the job market, I would fill out an application.
Oh, I'm sure Sika would love to have you.
Amanda, please do come back. And for our listeners and watchers, thank you so much for joining us. Be assertive, speak up, and be heard. Your voice matters. And as Holly Adams says, women empower women. So thank you for joining us. We'll see you soon.